Too drunk to kneel, too proud to pray. The Baptist church steeple split in the sun, casting a shadow on the damage I've done. I can see Widow Johnson in her Sunday best, clutching a hymnal to her hollowed out chest. She's walking to Jesus to wash off the weed. I'm pouring a double to color my cheek. My legs feel like lead and my head feels like stone, and I'm fighting a gravity all on my own. I can hear the first notes of old rugged cross drifting on the wind like a count of the lost. And I know that salvation is just down the street, but I can't find the rhythm to move my 2 feet. I could crawl to the altar and beg for a crumb, but I ain't quite desperate enough to play dumb, to bargain with heaven just because I feel bad is a kind of repentance that I never had. So I'll stand in my kitchen and sway like the trees, with a heart full of holes and a trembling disease, caught in the middle of the dark and the day, too drunk to kneel and too proud to pray. I remember the sermon from when I was 10 about lions and fires and righteous men, but the lions are landlords and the fire is the rent, and the righteousness went where the money was spent. See, if I ask for mercy, I'm admitting the crime, and I ain't pleading guilty to having a time. God gave me the thirst and He gave me the grain, so why should I apologize for the pain? I won't be a hypocrite with a headache and fear, calling on the Lord just because the end is near. Cause I know that salvation is just down the street, but I can't find the rhythm to move my 2 feet. I could crawl to the altar and beg for a crumb, but I ain't quite desperate enough to play dumb, to bargain with heaven just because I feel bad is a kind of repentance that I never had. So I'll stand in my kitchen and sway like the trees, with a heart full of holes and a trembling disease, caught in the middle of the dark in the day, too drunk to kneel and too proud to pray. They say that the humble shall inherit the earth, but I've seen what a deed to the dirt is truly worth. It's taxes and weeds and a hole in the ground. So I'll keep my chin up and I'll buy the next round. I'll take my chances with the judgment to come, standing on 2 feet instead of on one. The choir is quiet, the service is done. I watch them walk out one by one. They look forgiving, light as a feather. I pour one more to handle the weather. I might be a sinner, lost and unwhole, but at least I'm the captain of my own sinking soul. No deals, no begging, just a headache and the truth.
diesel fuel and a sharpened hoe. Said it's the devil's ivy, boy, don't you let it grow. He spent his pension on poison, he spent his back on the blade, trying to hold back the jungle from the mess he made. But the vine is patient and the old man was weak. Now it's curling around the chimney like a green tongue in a cheek. It cracked the limestone foundation in the winter of '09 and turned a Victorian mansion to a bottle of cheap wine. Yeah, it's hitching up the side and it's coming through the floor. It's locking up the hinges on the front screen door. It's swallowing the history, it's swallowing the pride, hiding all the ugly things we try to keep inside. There ain't no heritage that nature cannot see when the kudzu is eating the family tree. There's a '65 Mustang buried in the side yard. You can see the chrome bumper if you look real hard. It's a green burial mound for a teenage dream, choked out by the tendrils and the humid steam. It crept through the window in the master suite, wrapped around a bedpost and a linen sheet. It's holding house together while it tears it apart, like a bad addiction in a weak man's heart. Yeah, it's hitching up the side and it's coming through the floor. It's locking up the hinges on the front screen door. It's swallowing the history, it's swallowing the pride, hiding all the ugly things we try to keep inside. There ain't no heritage that nature cannot see when the kudzu is eating the family tree. They say blood is thicker than the water in the creek, but the sap is rising and the timber is weak. We sold the timber rights, we sold the mineral claim. Now we're losing the shadow and we're losing the name. I suppose it's a justice, I suppose it's a right for the earth to take back what we stole in the night. Swing was left of the wood, drinking warm bourbon and feeling pretty good. Let it take the photo albums, let it take the guild, let it crush the empire that the cotton built. I won't lift a finger, I won't cut a strand, I'll just watch a green ocean drown the dry land. Green over gray, leaf over stone, take it all back, it was never ours anyway. Bible is just paper when you're cold. The propane tank sounded hollow when I kicked it with my boot. The wind is singing through the siding like a devil's flute. I'm wrapped in a horse blankets thin as a sea, wondering just how much a frozen man has left to give. I emptied out my pockets on the dusty cabin floor, a lighter, a knife, and nothing more, except for the King James my mama gave to me, inscribed in blue ink for your security. It's bound in black leather with a ribbon of red, but tonight it ain't a scripture, it's a way to keep from dead. Cause the Holy Ghost is spirit and the spirit has no heat, it don't stop stop the numbness in your hands and in your feet. You can memorize the verses, you can quote the chapter line, but theology don't matter when you're running out of time. Salvation is a promise for the story to be told, but the Bible is just paper when you're cold. Yeah, the onion skin is thin and the gold leaf peels away, burning up the gospel to live another day. I hesitated longest at the family tree, the list of the dead and the list of the free. I watched my own name curl up black and turn to ash, trading my inheritance for a moment's flash. I started with the maps in the back of the book. The desert of Judea took a second to cook. Then I moved to Leviticus and laws of the land, warm in the knuckles of my shivering hand. It burns fast and bright with a holy kind of light, a sacrificial fire for a God-forsaken night. Cause the Holy Ghost is spirit and the spirit has no heat. It don't stop the numbness in your hands and in your feet. You can memorize the verses, you can quote the chapter line, but theology don't matter when you're running out of time. Salvation is a promise for the story to be told, but the Bible is just paper when you're cold. Yeah, the onion skin is thin and the gold leaf peels away, burning up the gospel to live another day. I got to the Gospels when the wind began to die. I looked the red letter straight in the eye. Greater love hath no man, that's what it said. Before I struck the flint and put the verse to bed, I reckon Jesus knows about the suffering of man. I reckon he'd offer me the fire from his hand. It ain't a lack of reverence, it ain't a lack of fear. It's just the brutal logic of staying living here. Coming up over the ridge of the hill, and the cabin is quiet and the air is still. I'm alive in the morning, but I feel a little less, like I failed a final unspoken test. There's a pile of gray ash where the word used to be, and a silence where the Lord used to speak to me. Running on fumes and felonies. The alternator's whining like a jealous ex-wife. Complaint is the soundtrack to the rest of my life. I got a gentle vibration in the front right tire, and a nervous system wide like a house on fire. I crossed the state line about an hour ago, buying time with a credit card I stole in Tupelo. The gas gauge is broken, it's been stuck on F, but I know I'm riding on the vapors of death. I'm eating trucker speed like it's candy corn, wishing to God I was never born. Yeah, the math don't work, but the wheels still turn. I got bridges behind me that I didn't mean to burn. I got a glove box full of paper that the law owns back, in a heavy paranoia in a Pontiac. I'm pushing my luck past the point of degrees, running on fumes and felonies. Yeah, the tank is dry and the record is long, and I'm writing the ending to a prison song. It wasn't a score, just a sound of a machine stripping down to the bone. I coast to the shoulder in the gravel and the dust, betrayed by the metal, betrayed by the rust. Silence rushes in like a ringing in the ear, and the rear view mirror shows the lights getting near. I don't run into the woods, I don't try to fight, I just lean back and wait for the end of the night. Coast it out, dead silence. Here they come. Might as well smoke the last one. Resin buzz of the Texaco sign is humming in the key of a flat line. I turn out my pockets on the concrete ground, laying in a button is all that I found. I promised my mama I'd walk the straight path, but I never was good at the spiritual math. My hands are shaking like a tambourine wire, and my throat feels like I swallowed a tie. I ain't looking for redemption, I ain't looking for a grace. I'm just looking for something to fill up the space between the headache I have and the headache I'm due, and the gray kind of smoke that turns the air blue. Now Faust got a wisdom and wealth and renown, and Johnson got the guitar that tore up the town. But I walked in the store with a heavy hung head, traded my eternity for something to dread. I didn't ask for a mansion, I didn't ask for the rights, I just bought it all for a pack of menthol lights. Yeah, the devil's a clerk with a name tag on his chest, and he knows that I'm settling for second best. I traded the photo of my daughter in the frame, I traded the honor of my granddaddy's name, I traded the promise that I made to the wife for 20 white soldiers to shorten my life. It wasn't a contract signed in the blood, just a crumpled up dollar dropped in the mud. The clerk didn't blink when I put it all down, he just scanned the barcode and adjusted his frown. He handed him over that cellophane sheen, the coolest, sharpest, deadest kind of green. I tore off the foil and I tapped on the box and listened to the clicking of the spiritual locks. Now Faust got a wisdom and wealth and renown, and Johnson got the guitar that tore up the town. But I walked in the store with a heavy hung head, trading my eternity for something to dread. I didn't ask for a mansion, didn't ask for the rights, I just bought it all for a pack of menthol lights. Yeah, the devil's a clerk with a name tag on his chest, and he knows that I'm settling for second best. The first drag is winter, the second is tar, the third is realizing you didn't go far. It numbs up the feelings, it cools down the burn. You'd think after 40 years I'd finally learn that the fire don't stop just 'cause you can't feel the heat, and the devil don't mind if the purchase is cheap. I'm standing out here by the air in the vac with 19 friends left in the soft corner pack. I reckon I got about an hour or two before the guilt comes back and the payment comes due. But right now I'm breathing in the chemical air, and for a nickel or a dime I just don't care.
is the only law I obey. It takes a hell of a lot of fuel just to stay in the air, to keep a smile on your face and a part in your hair, to keep the mortgage paid and the reputation clean. Requires a constant fight against the nature of the machine. I spent 30 years trying to hover above the ground, fighting the invisible hand that was dragging me down. But the engine is tired and the wings are bending back, and I'm starting to see the comfort in the fading to black. Rising takes effort, rising takes a spark, but falling is as easy as closing your eyes in the dark. I don't worry about the statutes of the state or the crown. I don't worry about the sheriff coming into the town, 'cause there's a force much older and it's stronger than a prayer. It drags the rain from the cloud and the dust from the air. It pulls the whiskey to the belly and the needle to the vein. It pulls the roof to the cellar and the rust to the chain. You can fight it for a moment, you can keep it at bay, but gravity's the only law I obey. There's a peace in the gutter that the penthouse don't know. When you're finally lying flat, you got nowhere left to go. You don't have to worry about slipping, you don't have to fear the drop. You've reached the equilibrium where the struggles finally stop. They call it a failure, they call it a sin, to let the earth open up and let the bottom come in. But I call it a mercy, I call it a rest, to finally get this heavy ambition off of my chest. I'm tired of climbing ladders that are leaning on a cloud. I'd rather be the sediment inside of the shroud. I don't worry about the statutes of the state or the crown. I don't worry about the sheriff coming in to the town, 'cause there's a force much older and it's stronger than a prayer. It drags the rain from the cloud and the dust from the air. It pulls the whiskey to the belly and the needle to the vein. It pulls the roof to the cellar and the rust to the chain. You can fight it for a moment, you can keep it at bay, but gravity's the only law I obey. Sir Isaac Newton, he figured it out when the apple hit the grass with a decisive cloud. It didn't ask forgiveness, it didn't ask for time, it just followed the trajectory of the perfect crime. Everything that rises must eventually decline, and I'm just stepping forward to stand in the line. Don't try to pull me up, I'm happy with the sediment in the bottom of the cup. I made my peace with the physics of the fall. I'm just answering the planet's undeniable call. Heavy, so heavy, let it go. Whistle used to cut the morning cleanly in half. It was the only clock we needed, the
the only epitaph for the hours we sold to the furnace and the loom, turning cotton into money in a cinder block room. But on a Tuesday in November, the steam pipe went cold and the silence hit the valley like a story getting old. The foreman handed envelopes with a trembling hand, and the ink was barely dry on the death of the land. We waited for a thunderbolt, we waited for a flood, but the end came quiet, just a drying of the blood. They say it watches over sparrows and the lilies of the field, but he turned his back on the harvest and the yield. He didn't leave it in anger, he didn't leave it in hate. He just checked the profit margins and he couldn't pull the weight. He packed up his mercy in a cardboard crate and caught the midnight rail out of the rusted gate. Yeah, the devil didn't conquer us, he didn't win the war. God just took a better offer in 1984. Now Main Street is a mouth full of broken, rotten teeth, and there's a different kind of fire burning underneath. The boys are cooking misery and trailers in the pine, selling pieces of their souls for a chemical line. The pawn shop is the museum of the life we used to know, full of wedding rings and tools in a dusty road. You can buy grandfather's watch for $20 bills and trade a family legacy for a handful of pills. The church roof is leaking and the buckets are all full, and the shepherd's fast asleep while the wolves eat the wool. They say he watches over sparrows and the lilies of the field. They say he watches over sparrows and the lilies of the field, but he turned his back on the harvest and the yield. He didn't leave it in anger, he didn't leave it in hate. He just checked the profit margins and he couldn't pull the weight. He packed up his mercy in a cardboard crate and caught the midnight rail out of the rusted gate. Yeah, the devil didn't conquer us, he didn't win the war. God just took a better offer in 1984. We still say grace at supper, out of habit more than hope, clinging to the wreckage like a drowning man to rope. But the prayers hit the ceiling and they fall back on the floor, collecting in the corners like the dust behind the door. I reckon he's in Houston or maybe Tokyo, somewhere where the money and the milk and honey flow. Of a heavy empty sky, punch a card, lock the gate, turn off the lights, he ain't coming back. Devil means a designated rider. The bartender flicked the lights and killed the neon sign. He's sweeping up the broken glass and the spilled red wine. My passenger slumped over in the corner booth, mumbling in Latin and looking for a missing tooth. He's got a silver tongue that can talk a nun out of a habit, but right now he's trembling like a cornered rabbit. He spent the night buying rounds of gold he doesn't own, setting fires in the hearts of the girls who were alone. He conquered the room from 9 until 2, but the whiskey did the one thing a guy couldn't do. Yeah, he's a prince of darkness, he's a lord of the flies, but he can't find his pockets and he can't focus his eyes. He can bargain for a soul, he can rattle the cage, he can stand in the center of the world's burning stage, but when the bottle is empty and the bar is closed down, he's just another drunk tourist in a two-get town. He ain't got the keys, he ain't got a survivor, so even the devil needs a designated driver. I drag him to the truck, he's heavy as a sack of lead, smelling like sulfur and the things he shouldn't have said. I toss him in the shotgun seat of a 88 Ford and buckle in the fallen angel, restless and bored. He's fumbling with the radio, trying to find the news, searching for the headlines of the chaos and the blues. But all he gets is static and a preacher on the AM band. He laughs and little smoke rain into the palm of his hand. I keep that 55 watching for the county heat, praying he don't get sick on my upholstery seat. Yeah, he's a prince of darkness, he's a lord of the flies, Then he steps into the shadows and he's gone from the sight, leaving me alone with the tail lights and the night. See you next Friday, boss. Try to drink of water. I'm using an old toothbrush and a bar of lava soap, scrubbing at the wreckage of a high and holy hope. The fluorescent light is buzzing like a hornet in the jar, and I can see the blue lights flashing from the patrol car. The water in the basin is swirling pale and red, the silence in the kitchen is the silence of the dead. My knuckles are split open, white bone against the air, but I don't feel the stinging, I don't feel the tear. I'm just focused on the metal, focused on the shine, trying to undo the damage of a momentary line. It's caught in the filigrees, deep inside the day, stuck between the numbers of a happy sealed fate. It's hard to get the red out of the 14-karat gold when the story of the violence is so suddenly told. You can bleach away the memory, you can sanitize the sting, but there's no way to finish cleaning blood off a wedding ring. It settles in the scratches, it bonds with the band, a permanent reminder on a temporary hand. He didn't think I had the nerve. He thought he was the driver on a long and winding curve. He put his hand upon you, he claimed you with a touch, and the lever in my mind snapped, it was just a bit too much. I didn't reach for powder, I didn't reach for steel, I just let the anger show him exactly how I feel. I hit him with a promise, I hit him with a vow, I used a symbol of our love to clear the furrow of the plow. And now he's on the floorboards, quiet as a stone, and I'm standing at the sink feeling completely alone. It's caught in the filigree, it's deep inside the date, stuck between the numbers of a happy sealed fate. It's hard to get the red out of the 14-karat gold when the story of the violence is so suddenly told. You can bleach away the memory, you can sanitize the sting, but there's no way to finish cleaning blood off a wedding ring. It settles in the scratches, it bonds with the band, a permanent reminder on a temporary hand. I hear the heavy boots coming up the front porch stairs, I hear the wood creaking under unspoken prayers. I rinse it one last time and I dry it on my shirt, but I can't wipe away the history or the hurt. It's clean enough to wear, it's clean enough to show, but every time I look at it I'm always gonna know. Back on slowly over the swollen bone. A golden golden band of ownership for a man who's on his own. The sheriff kicks the door in, gun drawn to his cheek. But I don't raise my hands up and I don't try to speak. I just hold out my left hand, catching the light. The cleanest thing in the whole damn house tonight. It shines. It really shines. Till death do us part. I kept my word. I kept my word. Kept my word. Kept my word. I kept my word.
Preacher's got my name written on his palm. He's sweating through the verses of the 23rd Psalm. He keep looking at the clock on the vestry wall, wondering if he'll make it to the shopping mall. It's raining on the tent and the grass is slick, and the mud is getting thick on the shovel and the pick. I'm leaning on the pulpit, invisible and cold, watching them bury a story that was never really told. They rented the casket, they rented the hearse, and they're crying on cue for the second verse. Oh, the lily smells sweet, but the coffee smells burnt. Yeah, nobody's using the lessons I learned. They're shaking hands solemn, they're nodding their head, speaking in the hushed holy tones of the dead. But I hear the whisper, I hear the deceit from the comfort of the cushions on the honor seat. It's a comedy of errors, a tragedy of lies, and I got a front row seat to my own demise. My brother is standing in the second row back, wearing my ostrich boots and a suit of black. He stole them from my closet before I was cold, before the doctor signed the paper and the bell was tolled. And there's my widow looking sturdy and pale, thinking about the payout arriving in the mail. She's holding a tissue, but her eyes are dry. She's already waving the memory goodbye. I wanna shout out, hey, that money is gone, but the choir drowns me out with a heavenly song. Oh, the lily smells sweet, but the coffee smells burnt. Yeah, nobody's using the lessons I learned. They're shaking hands solemn, they're nodding their heads, speaking in the hushed holy tones of the dead. But I hear the whisper, I hear the deceit from the comfort of the cushions on the honor seat. It's a comedy of errors, a tragedy of lies, and I got a front row seat to my own demise. It's funny what you notice when
How the hymns are off key when they're finally sung. How the friends who weren't there when you needed a loan are the first ones to carve up the granite and stone. I'd be angry if I wasn't so incredibly tired of the job and the debt and the life that expired. Down with a winch and a crank while the banker checks the balance of the emptiness in the bank. I throw a little dirt on the lid of the box and listen to the thud of the gravel and rock. They're heading to the church hall for biscuits and ham and forgetting the trouble and the man that I am. Nice boots, brother, hope they pinch, enjoy the ham, I'm out.